meant to be accessible, yeah, to me that's on the accessible path, right? And so I ended up calling the Department of Justice, and I felt kind of stupid after the conversation because the lady goes, well, which is the more stringent code? ADA says max. When we say max, we mean it. And I was like, oh, well, you're right.
You know, that, quite honestly, like, that's what sort of gets annoying. Like I said, I understand code and like everyone does need to follow it. But as somebody who has seen lots of things that they say are code, and you go in and you look at them and you're just like, there's no way that's code. That's where I kind of come at this whole approach with go above and beyond what the code requires, and just it's kind of this whole idea of like doing the right thing, right? Like, yeah, we want to follow code, but does it make sense to, like, if we made that door just an inch wider, like, could somebody's wheelchair have better access, or you know, if we installed these lifts and things, like, just making life easier. I think code, I respect code. I want to make sure that we follow code, but we could do a little bit more, I would say. That's just my humble opinion, but thank you for your comments, sir. I appreciate that. Yes, ma'am.
I recently was tasked with designing a bathtub for obstetrics unit for women who are having trouble in labor to use a bathtub.
Sure.
And there are accessibility standards for bathtubs, but what I found is it was really hard to find a bathtub that was at the proper transfer height. And a lot of times I find products on the internet that are, you know, like if you Googled accessible bathtub, they would come up with the bathtub that has the door that you walk into, but it doesn't consider people having to transfer, you know. So I guess my question is, you know, do you know of websites that have products that are hard to find products for accessibility?
So that's the tricky part, right? Because the solutions I would have given you were those walk-in tubs, because that would be, to me, would be zero entry, as close to zero entry as you can get. But I don't think a lot of products consider whether it's, you know, I mentioned the tables in the rooms, like, and bathtubs. Like, I don't think a lot of those products consider the need for transferring in somebody who needs to go from point A to point B. Unfortunately, I don't know of specific products. I haven't seen them. If you can find them, I'd love to know about them, because that's, you know, that's a challenge that I and many other people with disabilities face. You know, they'll say something is accessible, or you'll have an accessible room in a hotel, or you'll do, you know, they'll say, oh yeah, this is accessible, and then you get into your space and you're just like, there's a 4-inch lip in order for me to get into the, like, people's definitions of accessibility to my definition of accessibility, whether it's a hospital, hotel, a lot of environments in our society just doesn't match. And I think that is where the challenges come into play, because, like I said, I can go into a hotel room, and I've said on numerous occasions, I need a room with a roll-in shower, and then you get in the room, and yes, it's a roll-in shower, but there's a 3 or 4-inch lip to get into the shower.
Even a 1-inch lip creates a problem.
Yeah. So and like I use a shower chair when I need to do everything in any environment, and so I need that flat surface in order to be able to navigate. And if I have an attendant, I mean, I always have an attendant with me, but if I have somebody and there's a lip, they're having to try and navigate that lip in order to allow me to get a shower. And I've seen that in all environments, hotels. I've seen some crazy things in hospitals, which again is ironic to me, because a hospital is where you're meant to go to get treatment, and you would think, you know, they would be above and beyond compliant, but you'd be surprised to see what I've seen. So I'm sorry I don't have specific answers, but I wish I did, but it's tricky.
Like, for example, with that, when we travel, you know, you can buy these portable ramps that can get you, you can have a 1/2 inch, 1 inch, a 3-inch, or whatever. We take an inch ramp and take it just in case we're gonna need it in a shower.
Any other
Yeah,
comment?
I've experienced, like, I worked on healthcare projects a long time ago, and at that time, accessibility was not even an option, because the attitude was that, there are people there to assist the disabled. There's nurses and doctors, and they will assist. So can you, explain why, that's not necessarily, desirable?
I can only explain from a personal perspective.
Yeah.
That is a terrible approach to take. Because again, I think first and foremost, mainly, if you're going by that approach, you're putting nurses and doctors and patients at risk to again be injured and hurt. And, you know, you might have a workman's comp claim if somebody blows out their back while they're trying to do that. Well, I appreciate that they're there, and I appreciate that notion. There is technology now to use to make life easier. So why don't we, yes, there is more of a cost involved. I certainly understand that. I'm aware of like the bottom line idea and all of that. But if it lessens the opportunity for being injured, or a patient being injured, or a patient being afraid to go to the doctor, which is often, like I said, what happens, why would we not take that approach? And you know, I that makes me cringe to hear you say that. No, I'm not.
I'm just saying that I've had arguments even to this day, people with that attitude,
And that's you're right, that is the reality, and I think that mindset needs to change for that peace of mind that I know I keep going back to it, but it really is that whole idea of like peace of mind when you go to get a medical test. And I'll throw this in there too, like, because of my spinal fusion, I have rods in my back. So to be transferred, it can be done, but it's very nerve-wracking because like I can't lean forward. This is about as much movement as I've got in my trunk. And so to be lifted, usually somebody gets under my arms, somebody gets under my legs, and it is the most weirdest feeling to be lifted with rods in your back, just because like you feel the rods when it's happening, and like it happens fine, and nothing, in most cases, I will say in most cases nothing happens, but it just doesn't feel right, and it's not safe. I appreciate that they're there to do that, but I think there are other approaches that hospitals and facilities could take to make it easier and make it safer for everyone.
And I'll elaborate on that too, because in most cases, when somebody wants to pick him up, they want to do a face-to-face bear hug on him, or actually they want to come in. They want to come in from the back, and because of the way his fusion is, it's T2 to L1, so it's a large fusion, and so his neck doesn't go forward. So if you're picking up somebody from the back, they have to be able to put their neck forward, so he can't do that.
And I'm cringing right now.
Right. And so he says, you can't go from the back, you have to go from the front, you have to give me the bear hug thing. And so then that really puts a strain on that person's back, because they have to bend over, pick him up, and lift him up. So it's the whole.
And the other thing that people always try to do, specifically on like an x-ray, is to get me in a sitting up, like when I'm flat, I can't really move from that position without help. And in a lot of cases, people will try and get me in a sitting up position on like the side of the x-ray table, and I can't do that either. So I mean, it's got to be like a one motion type thing to get me from x-ray table back to my chair, or vice versa. But if you had a lift to do that, it would solve the problem in 2 minutes. Mm-hmm. Like I have a lift at home, and it's super easy to use. But I don't understand why facilities and medical facilities, I don't want to say refuse to do it, but haven't thought that far ahead to implement that. So
To actually take your comment, one of the things that he talks about every day is just simply the golden rule.
Right.
If if that doctor or whoever that facility is wants to argue with you about the fact, well, there's a person there that can do that, tell that person, all right, you be the person that's being picked up, or you be the person that's there, and think about how you would feel, how that affects your dignity, how that affects your physical, being. And sometimes that clicks, sometimes that works.
So, sorry.
I had a broken foot for a short time, and so I experienced, just one foot.
Yeah.
And, to have to wait for somebody to open the door, you're sitting outside hoping that somebody will come along and
Mm-hmm.
open
And then
the
it's not
door.
raining.
It's
And something as small as like automatic doors, like specifically not in hospitals, because that's obviously happens all the time, but just in doctors' offices. Like, luckily for me, I'm always with somebody in most cases, so I have somebody. But there are a lot of people who are way more independent than I am, and to your point, they kind of have to wait there until either someone from the doctor's office sees them, like a receptionist or somebody like that, or somebody comes along and is there to open the door. But it's silly, in my opinion. I think you had a question in the back, sir?
I want to question, we finished not too long ago designing an upgrade to a renal specialist doctor's office.
Uh-huh.
And everything was quite outdated, and the goal was to get everything up to some kind of ADA standard. We ran into, I'm getting ready to kick off the project and actually start the construction. 2 weeks prior, the doctor's office got their first extreme bariatric patient.
Mm-hmm.
And it was sort of eye-opening to them because we were planning on addressing all issues, especially getting most of their doors up to 36-inch standards.
Sure.
Well, by the time that patient got from outside from the car into the front door, out of the waiting room into the back hallway, into the exam room, they had torn the skin
Yep.
of a part of their body
Yep.
and left blood trail, if you
Mhm.
will, and then back out. And it disturbed everybody, as
Sure.
you can imagine. And so we had the opportunity, because we hadn't started yet, to widen a couple of the doors, not everything, but
Sure.
a couple of the doors to 42 inches. Sorry, not 46, 42 inches.
Sure.
To get to a certain 1 or 2 exam rooms from a path of travel.
Sure.
We'd already planned on the front door being a 4 foot wide, not a 3 foot, only to address stretchers, but stretchers can go through a 36-inch door.
Sure.
In a lot of cases, and they can there, but certain size patients cannot handle even a 36-inch
Sure.
door.
I mean, it's a challenge to. I mean,
Yeah, it's eye-opening for everybody.
yeah, and like that. Those are the type of eye openers that we need more facilities to be aware of. I mean, I will probably say too that I've gone to some doctor's offices and they say, yeah, we're accessible, and then you get there and they're not. So, like, again, a doctor's office should be the most accessible location you can find, I think. And it's to hear a story like that and to have some of the things that I've had happen. And I'm not doing any of this to like call out doctor's offices, do any of that, but to just sort of open people's eyes to say, like, if we approach this differently, and think about building things a little bit wider on the front end, and doing things on the front end so that when an incident like that occurs, it's already, you don't have to go back and do it or fix something or do something else. It's not, I don't think the things I'm sort of suggesting or recommending are challenging things to do. I think they're kind of the right thing to do, kind of.
Well, and if you go back to how you started the presentation, using handicapped or handicapable people as the lowest common denominator, that's supported by the code. The whole basis of the ADA is that you're providing an identical experience for no matter what that person's challenge is, right? So if you think about it in context of a condo, if a condo has a oceanside view with a walkout deck, then you have to provide the exact same, you have to provide the exact same thing, right, for someone that's in a wheelchair.
Yep.
And so you think about from a hospital perspective, if you have this beautiful entrance for anyone that can just walk up and go and check in, you got to have the exact same thing for someone that's in a wheelchair.
Sure.
But you know what, 90% of the cases, that's never the case.
Right.
We do travel a lot, And when we go to an ocean place, I'm always like, I want an oceanfront room, and I guarantee you they never exist. When we went to Hawaii, we had a room that you looked out on the side, and you could see the ocean, and that was their concept of the whole thing, but never.
I think people are so, like, sort of ingrained in the code. Like I said, not trying to call it, I mean, ingrained in the code that, again, be willing to sort of think outside of the box and be willing to be that, I guess, for lack of a better word, like renegade, to say, you know, no, we're gonna do this like this rather than how. I mean, the way it's always been done isn't working, so why not do it differently? Kind of thing, and that's sort of why I've been trying. I mean, for my consulting work, like I've been trying to get into doctors' offices and other similar places to sort of have these conversations to say, you know, let's set up our environments so that they're safer and they're easier to navigate and they're not as challenging. And haven't had as much success as I would have hoped, but we just need to keep having these kind of dialogues and doing more than what's required. Yes, ma'am.
So I was thinking when you just came to mind when you were talking about trying to get into doctor's office and having these conversations. Oftentimes the building isn't controlled by the doctors.
Sure.
Right? It's a medical office building. It's controlled by and owned by a private person or LLC. And so it might be worth targeting the owners of MOBs.
Interesting.
Because the doctors are just tenants.
Sure.
And that pretty much assigns a work letter, you know, a certain standard by which all of their offices will be fit out.
Sure.
Right? Unless, and of course they have to have ADA, et cetera. But that might be.
No, that's I honestly never. I honestly thank you for bringing that to my attention. I never even thought to think like that. But
And you can focus right on the MOB developers.
yeah,
Right? You can find that sector of folks.
sure, sure. Very cool. Thank you for that comment. That's really helpful. Any other questions, comments? Have about 4 minutes left, so we were pretty much right on time, which is good. Well, I don't want to hold you guys, but thank you very much for coming. I'll be up here if anyone has any other questions or comments. I have cards too if people would like cards, but thank you for sticking with me on the last day of the conference. I really appreciate that. Everyone always likes to try and book out when they can, but thank you for sticking with me, and hopefully you learned something. So thank you very much.